welcome to another Every Tuesday tutorial. In this week's tutorial, we're going to jump into watercolors and create some really cool debossed effect lettering. So emboss is when things are raised, deboss are when things are pushed into the paper. So you can see right here we've got that kind of effect going on where it looks like it's been pushed in to the surface. So I've been practicing this quite a bit and I've figured out a process that works really well, so I wanted to share that today. And I also have a cheat sheet that I created in case you're not sure where to put the highlight or the shadow. I was the same way, so I jumped into Photoshop and I made this little helpful cheat sheet that's got all the shadows and highlights on it for you. So make sure you hit the link in the video description and you can download that little cheat sheet, and I also have links to everything that I'm mentioning here that I'm using. So I'm using Canson cold press watercolor paper. It's super affordable and really easy. Works perfect for this technique. And I've got a half pan Winsor & Newton watercolor set right here, and I'm using just a number 8 round watercolor brush. This is Winsor & Newton Cotman that I'm using just for the wash, and then I've got a number 1 round Winsor & Newton brush just for the detail work right here. And then where the white is, I'm just using a white Jelly Roll gel pen for that. So really simple materials. So we're gonna hop right in and I'm gonna show you exactly how I create this outcome, and we're going to write out the word effect. So when you try this for the very first time, I'd recommend choosing a word that doesn't have a lot of curves in it, like O's and S's are kind of difficult. I would practice with like H's and E's and T's and F's and L's. All those more straight stroked letters are going to be a lot easier to practice with, and then when you get comfortable, then I would move into the more curved letters, just because the shadows and highlights switch a lot more frequently. You can see right here with the S, there's a lot of switching going on and it can get kind of difficult. So I would just practice with your regular straight letters first before moving on to your more curved letters. So we're going to use the word effect. There's just the C, that's the curve in there, so that works really well. If you want to do hello, you could do that too. So we're going to create a green one for this one. So I'm just going to grab my number 8 brush and grab some green that I've mixed up right here, and you'll probably have to do this a couple of times. The point of this is that you want it darker than medium green, but you don't want it super dark because we need to add in our shadows as well. So I'm just going to paint a wash. I'm going to wait for it to dry, and then I'm going to go over it again a few times just to make sure that it looks like a medium green, that we can really get some nice contrast between our shadows and our highlights once we start creating that effect. So I'm going to go through the process of painting and then painting on top, and then I will be back when it's ready to go. So we've got this all set, and we're just going to write out the word effect. So we're going to refer to this a bunch throughout, and then I'll show you kind of my process, how I work. So first of all, our green area right here, we need to make it a little bit darker so it shows up on here for our shadows. So what I'm going to do is just grab some more of my green, make sure I've got a solid amount of green right here. And then I'll introduce just a little bit of black to darken it up because it is a shadow right here. So I've added a little bit. I need enough where it'll show up as I'm painting it, but I don't want it too dark because, as you can see in the example right here, I've got different shades of blue that kind of lead up to the darkest kind to give me that contrast because we're casting a shadow, so it kind of has to fade as you go. So we need to do the lightest shade first, and then we'll build up from there. So from here, once I've got my darker green mixed up, I'm going to grab my number 1 round brush, and then I'm going to look here and I can see that the top part of the E and the left side of the E have a shadow, and then I go into white for my highlight, and then I've got a shadow, I've got my highlight, shadow, and then highlight. So that's what I'm going to follow right here. So the first thing I'm going to do is paint this top and left side first. So I'm just going to grab a little bit of paint, and you can also see that the left side and the top are kind of the strongest areas of the E with the shadow, so they're going to be a little thicker. So I'm just going to draw out my left side right here, and you want to make sure that it's showing up. If it's not showing up, or if it doesn't seem like it's dark enough, you can definitely mix a little bit more black in there, but I think this is going to work. And then I think this needs to be a little longer. And then what I do is I grab my Jelly Roll and then I'll put in the highlights right away. I don't put all of my shadows in at once because then I feel like my letters don't turn out as good as they could. So then I will draw in this highlight area right here on my E with my Jelly Roll. You don't want this line to be too thick. You want this line to be as thin as possible. It'll just make the effect a lot stronger if you do that. And then we've got our top part of the middle. So moving on to my F. And it doesn't look like very much right now, but we have to kind of layer our watercolor up. And you'll notice it starting to come to life by like the second or third layer of the watercolor. So I'm going to speed up the video and just go through this and kind of follow my guide right here, and then I'll be back. Okay, so once you have your first round of writing everything out complete, now you can mix up a little bit more black into your green just to darken it a little bit, and now we're building up the shadow. So I'll add a little bit more black to my green where it's noticeable enough, and then this will be my second layer of green, and you want to make sure everything's dry before you go back in. So just make sure it's dry, mix up a little bit more black, and then go through just where your shadow is, but you want to keep it to the edge. So I'm going to go like this on the edge of my shadow. So I'm not covering exactly the areas that it was before. So I'm going to go through this, and then I'll be right back for our third round. Okay, so it's time for our final round. So we're going to mix in a lot of black this time to our remaining green over here, because this will be our darkest layer and our final layer. And once you have that all mixed up, then you're going to do the exact same thing you just did. You're just going to hit the very edge of it so you can create a lot of contrast right there. So that's what we're going to do here. So there you have it. We've got that contrast, and if you kind of look at it at an angle, you can see that effect working its magic, where it seems like it's a little pushed in from the surface, just like our other examples right here. So if you enjoyed this tutorial, please subscribe. I release a new design tutorial or lettering tutorial every single Tuesday. And don't forget to head on over to my blog, every-tuesday.com, for even more design tutorials and lettering tutorials and design and lettering freebies. And make sure to click on the link in the video description to have access to all the materials that were used here, as well as that JPEG cheat sheet. So thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next week.